My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of the MCU Phase 4 from worst to best, but this will just be about the movies. I've seen a few of the TV shows, I've seen the special presentations, but I haven't seen all of the TV shows, so just to keep it simple, to keep it honest, I'm just going to be talking about the movies. This was a requested video, so hopefully you enjoy it, but I will also say that I didn't like the MCU Phase 4. I think Marvel is in a worse state now than they've ever been. So if you expect me to love all the movies, you're in for a disappointment. I will also say that this is my list. I'm aware I have some very hot takes on this. So if you don't like it, too bad. It's my list. But anyways, let's begin with the worst MCU Phase 4 movie, and it's The Eternals. For a movie that's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, there's just no excuse for this movie to be as lacking as it is. You know, you've got some interesting ideas of Drog wanting to enslave humanity. There's the one girl who's stuck looking like she's 14 for all of eternity. So, like, those are some interesting ideas, but just every other character has nothing about them that stands out in any way. Like, we spend so much time with them, and I couldn't tell you a single thing about them. Like, come on, that's just unacceptable. And why didn't they make Drog the villain instead of these generic, forgettable creature things? So, I just really didn't like that. And, you know, you've got yourself some interesting ideas, some interesting mythology, but in movie formatting, it just doesn't feel relevant. It just feels not fleshed out at all. We get moments here and there, but I just think this should have been a TV show where they could have fully fleshed out the characters and the story and the mythology going on. Because just trying to squeeze all of it in a 2 hour and 40-minute long movie, which is still a very long runtime, mind you, just didn't work. And I think the result is one of the more generic feeling, forgettable, dull MCU movies. I was relentlessly bored while watching it, and it's just not a good movie at all. So that's why it's my least favorite movie of Phase 4. Now, my second least favorite of Phase 4 is apparently not a popular opinion, but it's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I did not like this movie in the slightest bit. I thought it was way, way too long. It was way too slow, and just nothing is as interesting as they think it is. Namor is a terrible villain. I've heard people praise him as one of the best villains, but we don't really get to know him on the level I wish we did. I thought his motives were nothing new, and on top of that, he doesn't have any bit of menacing presence to him. So I didn't really care for that. And the rest of the cast just doesn't have it to carry a movie. Liada White, Angela Bassett, Danai Ukulu just don't have the screen presence to carry a movie. This movie was desperately lacking Chadwick Boseman, and I know the circumstances are tragic, but for the decision to not recast him, I thought was a terrible one. To use a real life death in a way to gain emotion in a fictional movie just doesn't sit right with me. And it's very jarring at the start. Like, it's just the movie begins and this character is dead. I understand the real life events that affected it, but looking at it at a storytelling perspective, it just doesn't work. And the biggest issue I also have with this movie is that it's just also generic. I watched this movie a few weeks ago and I've forgotten most of it already. None of it really stays with you. The CGI is better than the first movie, but it's still not great. It's way too dark in moments. I wish I mentioned that in my review. The fighting is lackluster. The Iron Man suits look absurd now. Everything with Martin Freeman's character is completely unneeded. And it's just a movie that made every wrong decision, and it shows in the end result. I thought it was just terrible, and I'm certain over time that it's going to gain that reputation. But yeah, did not like it at all. My next worst movie of Phase 4 is Black Widow. Now, I will say this. I love the opening credits to this movie. That cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit is badass. I love it. And Florence Pugh and David Harbour tried their best, but my goodness, nobody talks about how this is the Marvel movie that humor compromises the more dramatic beats the most. There's a scene where Natalie and Florence Pugh are confronting David Harbour's character about what he put them through. And it's pretty heavy stuff, and they're just making jokes. And it's just like, stop, just have this serious discussion. It drove me nuts. The CGI in this movie is terrible, and there's no excuse because this movie was on hold for like a year and a half. You've also got yourself this terrible villain in Taskmaster. And then just the action I didn't think was any good. It's completely bloodless. And yes, I know it's a Marvel movie, but when someone gets stabbed in the gut early on and she removes the knife and there's not an ounce of blood, I just can't take this movie seriously. So yeah, not a good movie. That's why it's 5th worst movie of Phase 4. Not fifth worst, fifth best, third worst. That's what I mean. My next movie on this list is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, I will give this movie this. The fight choreography is actually really good. It's impressive in moments. I wish the fight scenes were edited a bit better, but you definitely see potential there. And I actually love lots of what this movie is trying to do about telling this Shakespearean story of this father and son. But unfortunately, by the end of the movie, that entire plot just gets thrown away, and instead they focus on dragons as the main final fight. And it's just, why would you do that? The father and son stuff was much better than this, and it's what the movie was building up to. It was throwing away the humanity of this movie for the overly expensive CGI disaster that the MCU has become known for. And lots of the other stuff just doesn't work for me. The humor doesn't work at all. I wish this was a serious movie. Ben Kingsley is completely unneeded here. The Abomination and Wong fan service is just terrible. I wish the characters of Shang-Chi and his sister and the father were, like I said, I like the ideas they're going for, but I do wish they were more fleshed out. And I also think this is a very ugly movie, which lots of people have the opposite reaction to, but there's just something about the gray, muddy colors that I just found to be repulsive. So, yeah, there's potential here, but it's still a very bad movie. But then we get to my next movie on the list, which actually goes into the positive section, which I know is a hot take, but it's Thor, Love, and Thunder. You can tell me that this is the most unfunny, annoying MCU movie, and I completely understand. There's no argument here for me. You can tell me that the visual effects look cheap for the most part, and I can't argue with that. But I'm someone who likes to look deeper into a movie, and even though it doesn't nail every execution, I do think there is lots to this story about this man who's been heartbroken and closing himself off to the world and learning to open himself up again and redirecting his love to someone else. Because without that love being redirected, you're just going to turn into this overly self-righteous God who won't help anyone else. You look at Thor and Zeus, and Thor is on the path to becoming just like Zeus, unwilling to help others because he's been hurt. And then you've also got how it affects other people, and Gore's the God Butcher's character who just wanted to save his daughter and he couldn't. And that is a tragic backstory. And how his response is just everything and everyone must die. It deals with the ideas of absent gods and closing yourself off to the world in, I think, effective manners. And I think those are also some very mature ideas in a very immature movie, mind you. But I do think it gets enough right here. I think Gore the God Butcher is a compelling villain who Christian Bale plays perfectly. I wish we saw him do more God butchering, absolutely, but there's still enough there. And the romance between Thor and Jane is actually better in this movie than any of the others. And at the end, when Thor and Gore and Jane are at eternity and Jane is dying, and he's just like, make whatever wish you want. I'm going to be with her. Why would I spend my last moments with you? You know, he accepts death in that moment and he doesn't die. Instead, he's given a new task of loving someone else. And I do think it nails the emotion in that scene. I don't like Thor Ragnarok because the humor always ruins the emotion. But here, I do think the emotion comes through. And yes, I wish so many other elements of this movie were better. It is the Infinity Corn stuff, the Eat My Hammer stuff, the kids getting powers, abysmal. I agree. But there is lots of good here. I just wish it was in a better movie. And that black and white fight scene is pretty fucking awesome. So there's also that. My second favorite movie of Phase 4 is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I expected to hate this movie, and I enjoyed it. That said, I hate the story. This whole plot of Peter not willing to sacrifice a few villains' lives to save the multiverse is just bafflingly stupid. It drives me nuts. Like, what are you doing, Peter? But this movie is also filled with great moments like the fight scene between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. You've also got yourself the moments with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which are very pleasant. They have a nice dynamic between the three of them. You've got one of the best villains of the MCU in Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. He just plays him so chaotically. You really feel like he's an insane man. And I think the relationship between MJ, and Peter is legitimately really sweet here, and the direction that goes in for the ending, where everyone has to forget who he is, it has genuine emotion behind it. And I think the character arc of Peter is really strong, as this really has served as an origin story for who he is. So it's definitely a flawed movie. There's definitely some messy elements to it, but I think the character work is strong enough. The emotion is there. You've got yourself a great villain. You've got yourself some entertainment. Flawed, but good nonetheless. But my favorite movie of the MCU Phase 4 is easily like number one. It wasn't even close. It's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Look, you can give me all the issues you have with this movie all you want. That you have to watch WandaVision to see this movie. That you wish Scarlet Witch's transformation was a bit more nuanced. That America is just a MacGuffin. That what's the other big issue? The exposition scene is really bad. So I get all that, but also I think what Sam Raimi brings to this movie just elevates it above all else. Because I just watched this movie and I'm like, I want more MCU movies like this. There is a distinct vision on display. And you've got yourself so many great moments of Wanda attacking them through the mirror dimension and her crawling out like she's a creature from the ring. The scene where they enter all the multiverses is very fascinating. And I understand the complaint that the universe they land in is pretty boring. That's perfectly valid. But we also get this montage where Wanda is dreamwalking and it's just got this guitar riff and it's just doing these fade in and fade out that I really liked. When Wanda is trying to take over her other body and it's played off like a scene from Evil Dead, I love that. The fact that you introduce all this fan service only to kill them off immediately in brutal fashion, I absolutely love. The fact that you get this scene where Wanda's falling them down these tunnels and it feels like a slasher movie. And then you've got this great fight between good Doctor Strange and evil Doctor Strange where they fight using music notes. Yes, please. I love that. I had the biggest smile on my face during that moment. And then we get this scene where Doctor Strange has to dreamwalk into his other dead body. And that is just one of my favorite moments of the MCU. And he has to create this cloak using the souls of the damned. I loved that. Like, it's so badass. And I love the last shot of this movie despite the questionable CGI. And the music by Danny Elfman is great. So it's flawed, I agree, but I think it's consistently entertaining. It feels different than the rest of the MCU. It's like Zombie Strange and Souls of the Damned. That's just my kind of stuff. I loved it. And I just think it explores the character of Strange and just how he always walks that fine line between sacrificing himself to save everyone in heroic fashion or being full of himself and just causing more damage. And that fine line he has to walk. I think it does a good job of exploring that, and I enjoy this movie. I think it's a total blast. I get the criticisms and all of that, but I watch that music fight. I watch all of the Illuminati get dispatched in that fashion, and I'm just like, I love this. So that's why it's my favorite Phase 4 movie. But what are your ranking of the MCU Phase 4? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin, out.